So Amina kind of said something along the line. I think I clipped it, but she said something kind of along the lines of like, women have to do this and they find their way to accept it, but this is like, worse. And in my head, I'm like, I disagree, ma'am. Okay, this is really bad to me. Okay, I don't care if I don't care. This is a worst case scenario of my life here. Okay.
Welcome to the More Magic Book Club podcast, a podcast for fantasy readers dying to talk about the latest fantasy book you read and loved. Each month, we discuss a recent fantasy novel in detail, so you know you're not the only one who hated that character or wanted to move into that fantasy world. And you also don't have to worry about exhausting your friends who just don't get it. I'm your host, Demi Utley, an author and avid fantasy reader who also runs the More Magic newsletter over on Substack.
And I'm your co-host, Marianne, Boules. I am a children's picture book author, corgi mother, and Brandon Sanderson fan, although we prefer to call ourselves Sandy Heads.
So excited to dive into our latest read with you and can't wait to hear what you thought. Since we're discussing the book in detail, there may be a few spoilers, so listen at your own risk. And now it's time for us to dive into this month's book. Today we are talking about The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. For those of you not familiar with this book, or even if you are and you just want a refresher, this is about Amina, who is a pirate in retirement. She's in her 40s and has a daughter who I believe is 10 in the book. She's a single mom living in, I believe, Oman on the Indian Ocean. And the story starts with this older woman coming and essentially blackmailing her to come out of retirement and go on one final adventure to find the woman's granddaughter. So it's very fun. We'll talk about the book throughout today's episode, so I won't go into a summary of the entire story. But when I was reading it, I just kept comparing it to both Aladdin and also Pirates of the Caribbean, which are not at all the same thing, but that's how this book felt, which I thought made it feel so special because it had that like pirate Caribbean magic, but then also this Aladdin. I felt like there was going to be a genie and a lamp at any moment. But what did you think?
Yeah, Demi, I totally agree. I definitely got the Pirates of the Caribbean vibe, but with a more, I would argue, morally upright character. Since Jack Sparrow, we love him, but he is definitely not on the good access of the D&D moral alignment chart, that's for sure. And I would also say that it was just a more historically accurate version, since I know that Shannon, she has a preface or an author's note saying that she tried her best to make it true to the 12th century period of that time. And in fact, a lot of the interludes are based off of the travel logs from that time and place in real life.
That's so interesting. It felt like that when I was reading the book. It felt very immersive and also paid attention to the different cultures. I felt as a reader, I'm obviously in the US, not living there, and also certainly not in the 12th century, but I liked the way that it was presented as even the map. I don't know how closely you paid attention to the map at the beginning of the book, but the way that everything was like structured, it even looked different than like a Western map. With the way that the countries were laid out, and because it just felt a little different from maps that I've seen before, and I don't know if that was intentional or if that was just because it's a fantastical story, so they're like emphasizing like different regions in the book. I thought that was really really cool, and I just thought this was just such a fun story too. What did you think?
Yeah, I would squarely put this in the fun to read category. So for the listeners and the readers, I am of North African descent. So I've been to the Mediterranean Ocean, which I think is close to the Indian Ocean, which, by the way, if it isn't, it's because I'm horrible with geography. So for example, that map, I barely looked at it for half a second because my brain couldn't couldn't interpret the information. So even though I love fantasy, I never look at the maps. But if you tell me this country is right next to this country, I'll just take your word for it. Okay, so I have no idea. But with my poor geographical literacy, I am somewhat familiar with that region, and the history and the topography and the cultures and all of that, having visited Egypt myself 3 times between the time I was 6 and now. And I think that it's just a fun book, and if I were to ever go to Egypt again, I would probably just bring this book to reread and, just enjoy the vibes as they say.
Mhm. Yeah, it definitely had vibes. Yeah, it was that's where I just kept saying, like, Aladdin with Pirates of the Caribbean, both of which are such fun tales, whether it's the Disney Aladdin or any other sort of, um, Arabian Nights kind of story.
Yes. Yeah.
It really felt like that, but then we're on the ocean and on a ship, which doesn't normally happen when you're in a desert. So it
Yes.
had this different magic to it.
Can I actually interject something here, Demi? So Aladdin is a real story, or it's based off of a legendary character. His name is Aladdin. He comes from a bunch of stories called 1001 Nights of Arabian Tales. My mom would actually tell me those stories when I was a kid. There's actually a story about the stories. It's about a woman who she got married to this sultan or the sultan, and
Mhm.
he always got bored with his wives and he'd chop off their heads. So she was very smart because she figured out a way to keep her head on her body, which was to tell him a story every night and keep him wanting more. And so these are the stories that she told, and now they're all recorded and they're a part of the folk tale. So you're right to your point. You're totally right.
Oh, that's really interesting. So, if you grew up with these kind of Arabian stories, did this feel like when you were a kid listening to your mom tell these tales, did this have a similar kind of magic to it?
Yeah, actually, I would say that it did, especially the magic systems, which I'm excited to get into today since I'm a sucker for magic systems. But definitely the vibe, even the topography, just the cultures, it all was very familiar to me.
So, because it really felt very, very vivid. I'm curious, the author, I actually didn't look up her background, if she has any sort of Arabic influence or anything like that, but obviously she's definitely done her research, and it felt like presented a world that felt grounded in our world, but then it was also very fantastical because it starts out with Amina on a boat with people who had I think hired her to take her out, and they were trying to summon a being. I don't remember exactly what the being
I,
was.
I think she was like a demon from the underworld.
Yeah, it was something very intense, and which was quite a way to start the story. It just felt very immersed in magic and from the beginning, but then also for a little bit it was a lot about them on the ship and getting her crew together, which I feel like is classic of any sort of tale. I mean, even Pirates of the Caribbean, that's part of it, is they're rounding up all of the crew, like who's going to go man the ship. And so I think it's great because we have two different perspectives, because you are more familiar with that culture and I'm not. So I'm interested to hear your insights. So you know Arabic, and are more familiar with that. So there were terms throughout the book where I would say some of them were Arabic, but I didn't know like what they meant, when you're reading a story and they use these like kind of colloquial lines or words. And I'm curious, when you were reading, because you would have probably known what they meant. Do you have any insights or anything that just added a richness, since you do have that perspective?
Actually did, and I was really proud of myself because in public I might say I know Arabic. Like, on my resumes, I'll say I know Arabic, for that resume candy. But I don't actually know Arabic. I know the kind of Arabic that's like what my mom says, which is clean your room. You know, go take out the trash. That I could say in perfect Arabic, but real Arabic, I don't necessarily know, but I actually did, and I was really excited. So just I don't know if it necessarily added a richness, but it
Mhm.
was just like a fun little Easter egg. So just some fun translations for the listeners. So Dunya, one of the characters, that actually means world. And I have an acquaintance named Dunya, so I thought that was cool.
Oh, yeah.
Um, the word Magnoon, the Egyptian pirate, actually literally means crazy. The word Magnoon means crazy. So I thought that was funny. So he's known for being a crazy pirate, and his name is Crazy. Talk about
Interesting. Yeah.
self fulfilling prophecy. And the last thing, and I just thought this, or two more things actually. So she said that she could smell the bahur in the streets. Bahur is actually a word I know because we use it in our church. Incense is incense. So
Mm.
bahur means incense. And in our church, we're similar to Catholics, so we have a lot of incense. So I knew what that word was. I was really proud.
Oh,
And
yeah.
one other thing that I thought was interesting is she actually translated it into English, but I know the word in Arabic. So in the Islamic faith and therefore in the Arabic cultural context, the way you say hello is salam alaikum and then alaikum al salam, which
Mm,
is peace upon you and peace be upon you. And you'll see that actually translated into English many times throughout the book, which I thought was really interesting.
hmm. Yeah, that is interesting. Oh, I wish I knew some of the words because I feel like knowing that that meant incense, for example, would have created a more immersive experience. That's really cool. I like that throughout this book, the crew is a collection of a lot of different people. So Amina herself is Islamic, and then one of her main crew people, I'm blanking on her name right now. Uh,
Dalila.
yeah, the woman with the hat, like the poison woman.
Loved
Um,
her.
yeah, she was so fun, and she was Christian, and then I think that there was another one as well, but
Timu,
there was.
I think she intimated that he was from Southwest Asia. I'm not exactly sure where. And I think he
Mhm.
was Hindu, I think was of his faith.
That's what I was thinking. I thought that that was a really unique way to present this story because I like she somehow managed to add in a lot of diversity in this book, which is, I mean, it's long, but it's not like, Sanderson, we were talking about last time, a 1,500-page book. So she added in a lot of diversity, even just in that aspect, in a way that it didn't feel political. Like it was kind of implied politically. So like Amina's crew is a bunch of people who sort of wouldn't fit into society, and that's part of what it was like bringing them all together. And I feel like it was that, the misfit kind of trope or the chosen family kind of thing coming together in a way that, yeah, I feel like just added more magic to the book, and it really helped Amina to show her as a leader and a person who we wanted to cheer for from the very beginning. We saw her bringing the crew together, and anyone else would be like, well, you're Christian, I'm not. We're not gonna, that's what your mind would immediately think, that they would be enemies. But she was able to pull everyone together and just create this space that I thought was really beautiful. And I really liked the message there of, well, we can all support each other. And then when we do, we have kind of this grand adventure and take care of each other. And yeah, I really liked that about the book.
Me too. And adding on to that, I really liked that Shannon was true to the fact that Amina was a woman. So it was a woman pirate. And so I really liked that there are many scenes in the book that doesn't let you forget it. Because going into this, I was wondering, knowing, having some context of the Swana region and that period, I was very skeptical as to how she could portray women, because women have had hardships everywhere. Swana is no exemption, especially medieval times. But the
Hmm.
way she did it, it just made sense. I feel like I feel like a woman like Amina could have actually lived during that time and could have actually been a great pirate at that time. So in my mind, I like to pretend now that, who knows, maybe during the 12th century there were women who were just kind of live life on their own terms, totally rejected and shunned, and society's weirded out by her, but she's happy, and I just really like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say that that did happen. They weren't the ones writing the history books.
Yeah.
So we don't know about them. But yeah, I like that. And I really liked the thing that shocked me. I think there was a note or the dedication at the beginning of the book I had noted because it really spoke to me. Yeah, it says, for all those parenting and hardship during pandemics, through climate crises and under occupation, and then just like a few more things about parents. So I read this book shortly after becoming a parent, and I feel like, not to get too personal, but I was like, how trying to think about my identity, and so much fantasy, especially, is like 19, 20-year-olds being the chosen one or going on this adventure, or their parents die and then they have to do this, or they're, Katniss Everdeen, like going to save her sister, but still a teenager. You never see the parents whose kids go off and do that, or like the parents who have those adventures. So I really liked that this felt like a story for for people who are adults who have responsibilities, who want to escape and have magic and still have those adventures. I think that this was a really great example of a story where it's like, hey, she's 40, she talks about her knee's bad, you know.
Love that.
Yeah, and it just felt really real, but then she's having this adventure and she's smart. So she doesn't make the dumb mistakes that like the 20-year-old's going to make because they haven't had that life experience of those failures that someone like Amina does. And I just thought that was a really great addition to the fantasy book conversation of having this character who is a woman and also who's honestly this badass woman who's like, able to run the ship and like, be around all these men. But then also she's a mother, which normally we see as kind of like, you know, you have to be at home with your kid, you have to be nurturing and take care of them. And she really showed, especially for me at this stage in my life, like, hey, you can go and you can fight for your kid and you can, it's not just the men who get to go off to war and protect their daughters. Women can do that too, and in different ways. And I really like that about that book. So
Yeah, Demi, I totally agree. And I think women have always been fighting. Like you said, we're just not the main characters. I mean, the most recent example being World War II, right?
mhm.
Women were doing their part in the war as well, including spies. Even one of my idols, Adrian, oh my God, I'm totally blanking at her name. Audrey Hepburn. Audrey Hepburn. Who, despite the fact that I just forgot her name, I actually adore her. I adore everything about her. She was a spy when she was a child. So women have always been fighting on the front lines in one way or another. Something else
Mm.
that I thought was interesting is that she named her daughter Marjan.
Mhm.
And that is the name of the author of Persepolis. Have you ever read that? It's a graphic novel about
Mm-mm.
Persia. So she is Marjan. I highly recommend it, by the way, for everyone to read. So Marjan, let me just look up her name real quick so I don't accidentally. It's called Persepolis
Oh, I think I've heard of that, but yeah, I didn't know what it was about.
by Marjan Satrapi. That's her name. And it's actually a graphic novel autobiography of Marjan's life growing up in Persia or Iran
Mm.
during the hostile takeover of the country and her escape into America. And in it, she is very much a rebel, a misfit, just a special kid who was not meant to live under a fascist regime. And so her parents end up sending her away for her own good, living on her own, actually. And this is a real life story, by the way. This woman is still alive and she's in her 40s or 50s. So I was wondering if Shannon did that kind of as a nod to Marjan
Mm.
or if it was just a happy accident. But that's what I was thinking of when she named her daughter that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess we'll see. Because I looked and this is a planned trilogy. So there's supposed to be 2 more books. The second one's supposed to come out. It said September 2025. It's the end of July and there's still not a title, so I don't know if that's still the date. When I started reading the book, I was worried that something was going it was going to come back to her daughter and her daughter being in trouble. So if it is a nod to that, is this kind of foreshadowing, is she going to have to send her daughter away in the future
Oh
for her
God, I hope not.
safety?
I take it back. It's not a nod to that.
Or maybe it's the
Amen.
opposite. Like maybe having Amina there, you know, well, 'cause she's so tough and this pirate, not unafraid of magic. Well, she is kind of afraid of it. I guess she says that for a lot of the book, but um, yeah, that's really interesting. That was a note I had is in the beginning, I was really worried that the culmination of the book was going to be her daughter being in danger and like her daughter being the one, maybe she's got Dunya and saved her, but then her daughter was kidnapped, and then that was like the climax. And it did not go there, thankfully, which, as I said, as a parent, I'm very glad and grateful. And she was able to go home to her daughter. Um, but I'm curious because I feel like is it pronounced Raksh, the like human ex-husband? I don't know how you
Yes,
pronounce it.
I know how it's pronounced because I am a audiobook listener for those of you who are listening, and Demi is a reader, a physical copy reader. So
Yes.
it almost sounded like Raksh, like almost like there was a T or something, and then I was surprised to
Oh,
find that there's no T, but yeah, it's Raksh.
Raksh. Okay. So we just have to talk about him because I thought this was like the most creative and really interesting part of the story. I don't know if he's based off of an actual magical being, but basically accidentally married a demon,
Love it.
because she told him she told him she couldn't sleep with him, I think, unless they were married, and then they got drunk on I don't remember what it was. It was some specific drink. And then he drew up a contract and they got married and she woke up next to him and because he had looked like a human, and she woke up next to him and he was in his demonic state. And he's very funny. I love him, but also he's such a trickster character where he'll just do whatever he wants for himself. Because half the book I was like, well, maybe he'll get better and they'll get back together. And then he does something completely selfish, like abandon everyone on the ship. And then you're like, what is wrong with you? So, yeah, what did you think about his character?
Yeah, at first I was so scared of him in the first half of the book, leading up to when we actually meet him. In my
Oh,
mind,
yeah.
I thought he was going to be a demon, like a monster of a man. I thought he was going to be the big bad.
Yeah.
And then you meet him and you realize, like you said, he's just kind of like a Loki character, I guess.
Yes, yeah, who's
Yeah.
also yeah, the trickster, yeah.
But minus the redemption. So I think this is interesting from a literary perspective. Raksh is gonna be who Raksh is. He's like you can always count on him doing like again. I really love these alignment charts on D&D because I do play D&D, and for my categorical mind, it's just a good way of how to put people, on alignment to kind of understand them.
Wait, that's from D&D? Because I've seen those charts of, like, where you put your bookmark if it's
Lawful good, so
Yes,
there's,
exactly.
how lawful you are, and then how evil you are, and then there's an access for each, an intersection for
Oh,
each.
I didn't know that was from D&D.
Right, yes, it is, because when you pick your character, you pick what moral alignment do you want them to be, and then you play on that moral alignment. So I am an elf
Oh.
bard, for anyone who's interested in knowing. My last campaign, I was, I think, chaotic neutral, which was too hard to play. So I think I'm just gonna. I just prefer to stay in the good character. Some people love to be in the evil because it's like their one time that it's their chance to let it out. So I think my next campaign I'll probably be good. But so rocks, I would almost put him in a true neutral or chaotic. Well, he definitely belongs in the chaos category. So actually, I take it back. I would put him in chaotic neutral. Like he is
Mhm.
just gonna do whatever the hell he is gonna do. So, and it's never going to be, he will never be swayed by you or the situation. It's what is good for him at that moment. Even if it's not necessarily that good for him in the long run, like if he used his brain, it would have been better for him to maybe not make different decisions. And so I actually ended up loving him as a character and I was not so scared of him. And I loved his ending. I thought it was really fitting. And it's almost like a go home, Roger motif that I saw where, at the end of the book, they kind of kicked him off she slept with him and then
Mhm.
she kicked him out of the boat or tied him to a boat or something and was like, bye. My prediction is at the end of every book, that's what's going to happen is there's going to
Oh,
be
sends
something
him off.
yeah, sends him off in some utterly humiliating but hilarious way.
Yeah, it's so funny, I guess, uh, I just believe in growth so much to where I'm like, "Can't he learn and grow and become someone who we want her to be with?" But then that's not I mean, he's not human. Like, he's not, and it's which is I feel like fantasy stories do that so well of making you care about these non-human beings who just aren't going to behave the way that we want them to, and yeah, I think that the author did a really good job of keeping him that way. Because as a reader, I was like, "Okay, but can this be the time where he learns and he grows and and he doesn't act selfishly?" And no, he does. But I think that Amina did such a good job of manipulating him, knowing this is what he wants. And um, yeah, their banter was good. I really liked their relationship in
Yeah, I hope we
fairness.
see him in the sequel.
Do you think that she'll ever tell him that he's the father?
I have no clue. I think he's gonna find out. The question is, will it be of her will, or will it be one
Oh,
horrible
yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Will it? Because she so strongly doesn't want him to know. And I think that that is interesting. I'm curious in future books what ends up happening if her daughter does display some sort of magical ability or how that affects her. Because in this book, it's a fear of Amina's, but I don't think that we've seen anything like that.
It is a little hinted in the beginning when Marjan says, "Don't go, I have a bad feeling," and it sends shudders down her spine because
Oh,
Rock's just someone who had feelings about things. So she was wondering,
Oh,
is this just a little girl scared that her mommy's gonna leave, or is this something more spiritually afoot?
oh, yeah. I wonder how far in the future the next book's gonna be. If like she'll be older. Well, obviously older, like, but like significantly older.
One thing I do want to add, Demi, is just also thinking about the book thematically from a parent's perspective. I think that this book is about her coming to terms that or Marjana is not full Amina. She kind at the
Mm,
end of the book, she kind of has to accept that Marjana is part Raksh and part from this spiritual, magical world that she didn't really want to be a part of, but is so much so that her daughter is half of it. So I'm curious to see if that's going to be a theme she'll carry throughout the book. So maybe book one was her coming to accepting that. Maybe book two will come to. So maybe I kind of take it back. Maybe she will tell Rock, hopefully on her own terms once she gets to it, once she's able to muster up the courage to.
mhm. It kind of, even thinking about it, scares me for Amina because he's so selfish. I guess maybe that would be his
Yeah.
growth point. Like, what happens when this, demon of chaos finds out that he is
Yeah.
a child? Does he protect her, or does he just, the chaos just descend on her? Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah.
What did you think about the crew? Because I know, so I said Delilah, so it was Delilah.
In the audiobook, that's how they pronounced it, was Dalila.
Delilah. I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you're doing the audiobook because fantasy. I mean, even just reading regular words, I will pronounce incorrectly because I've never heard them out loud. But then when you add in like magical aspect, I don't know how this is supposed to be pronounced. But anyway, so Delilah, her and the main
So she pronounced it Teenboo. Teenboo.
Teen Boo. Okay.
Yeah.
Teen Boo. Because they were really good like comrades. Like they were very supportive of her. But then a note that I had when I was reading it is that we didn't get to see as much of them as I had hoped that we would because I really liked them and it was definitely Amina's story and kind of Rock's short story. So I'm hoping in the future, in the next couple books, like as the series continues, that we get to see a little bit more of those characters and just their relationship with Amina as it evolves. Did you have a favorite character?
I loved Dalila. I also
Yeah.
think she was total chaos. Her
Yeah.
solution for everything is blow them up, poison them. Do you want me to deal with them? Easy. Just stick some nightshade in their sandwich. Problem solved. I really like that. And at first, actually, when they first introduced her, I thought she was an actual psychopath, the way Amina talked about her, because she's so chaotic. So I don't like psychopath characters that much. Just
Hmm.
because it's just like you said, there's no redemption aspect. But you come to start to know her and you realize she's not a psychopath at all. She's someone who's heavily guarded from a life of trauma. And her way of coping is to become a master chemist with very little moral scruples. And I think that's fine. I like that for her. Especially like, in the beginning when she's like, oh, so many women's husbands are disappearing. I'm like, cool. Good to know that there was a woman out there who could do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked that it was these two women on the ship, which is traditionally men, on a ship, but they both found their own ways to protect themselves and to be strong. And in this world where it is set in a time period on Earth, in an area which I guess like in any region on Earth at that time, women had to think about constant threats for their physical safety and their freedoms. So I feel like they both were women who found their own way to do that. And with Delilah, it was, yeah, I'm going to have all these poisons. And if anyone screws with me, I'm just going to kill them, which is like, I mean, at the time, if we watch comparing to Pirates of the Caribbean again, like in that show, they're just constantly stabbing people. So how is that? This is kind of the same. She's just poisoning people and she's a woman. And then Amina, of course, she becomes the leader and the captain. And I like that. I like that in a way there's a contrast there as well. Like, I mean, Delilah is supporting the crew and but Amina really in leading this ship and they had smuggled goods and things like that. And accidentally marrying, I think this was her fourth husband or something. She'd married a
Oh,
few
fourth or
men.
fifth or something like that.
Yeah.
She has a
So
problem.
yeah. But it was I honestly love that because you always hear those stories of these men going and they sleeping with women every time they go into port and stuff like that. And she had her line, which was like, I have to be married to you. So she just married them, and, which I thought was an interesting way to still feel like you are, um, I don't want to say a good woman, but like you're not sinning because it's kind of bending the rules and finding this way around the social norms at the time and what was expected culturally. And then she did that, but still was able to have her freedom and sleep with different people and be the leader of this crew. And I really liked that. It wasn't like the author just created this woman was like, oh, she's a pirate captain. That's it. She kind of addressed all of those things that maybe would be arguments for why it wasn't realistic for that time period, which I really liked. I thought it added another layer to the story where it did feel like, oh, well, maybe this was real because she did have men who she married and would be with her. And so it's not like she was always some single woman who was, ripe for the plucking of some man. And yeah, I liked that.
Yeah. I think going back to the D&D chart is the alignment chart is maybe she's a neutral good because you see that she always wants to do the right thing, but she has no respect for the written law of the
Mm,
countries that she is in. In fact, she totally spites them, but she has her laws, which are according to her religion, but also it's according to her religion in the way that she interprets it. And
yeah.
so, yeah, so I thought that was really interesting the way I think it's really cool because it's just a good lesson for all of us because it's not like Amina's the only one in the history of the world that was bound by certain social norms or mores or laws. We all are to some extent, all of us. And so it's
Mhm.
just a good reminder to just live life on your own terms. And if there are frameworks that you have to abide by because like for yourself, for your inner say peace, then do it. But you can do it. You don't have to bind yourself in ways that are uncomfortable to you. And so I just thought that was a good reminder.
Mhm. Yeah, I think this whole book was a really good reminder. I'm curious, I wanna hear from someone who's not a woman who read the book and see how it resonated with them because, I mean, for me as a woman reading it, it just felt so inspiring and also freeing in a way to hear a story where because I mean, we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, especially in fantasy. There are some books where the women are there kind of just to be raped or, um,
Be
as a
fridged.
yeah, a love interest that doesn't do much to the plot. So having especially Amina and then also Dalila as these two women who were so independent and so in control. It's not like she changed she changed the world a little bit, but it felt realistic that they could have created these conditions where they were in control of their life. Because even saying, a woman having all these potions that she's using, that's kind of why the witch trials existed.
I
Women
was just
having,
thinking that, Demi.
yeah.
Like I was like, but you
Yeah.
have to be so careful to not get caught, or else you find yourself on the business end of a stake.
Yes. Well, we'll ignore that part. But it started because women had these remedies that they were able to use to take care of their health, to protect themselves, like these female traditions. We're not going to go into the history of that right now, but it felt very realistic to me when I was reading the book. I enjoyed that. The other thing I was going to say, kind of in a similar vein, is Dunya's character. So speaking of, I guess, gender and being a woman and things like that, that's the whole through line of Dunya's story is that the grandmother comes to Amina and is go
Ida? Salima.
Salima, yes, Salima. So Salima comes to
Which, by the
also
way, means peace, if anyone's interested.
I was just about to say I love the name Salima. I've seen that name in different stories and TV shows and stuff, and I think it's such a pretty name. So that makes sense if it means peace, which is ironic because she does not evoke peace throughout
Mm-mm.
this book. It's the
No,
opposite.
she cray cray. She needs to
Yeah.
calm down. Accept people as they are, ma'am.
Yeah. So she starts it by saying, "Hey, go rescue my granddaughter." And so that's the whole thing. And Amina goes on this mission to get the money and then is blackmailed and all of that stuff. And we find out that part of the reason that Dunya left is not feeling safe within life as it was at the time. So Dunya was, I believe, promised to marry someone or was
So she was promised to marry this old man who already had a bunch of wives. And the reason he wanted Donya is because he heard Donya was smart, so he could just list. He could talk about books with him, while they were, or her using her dead name while
Mhm.
they were in the bedchamber, which is ill. I totally don't blame Donya for doing what they did.
Yes. Yeah, it was,
Gross.
which also again felt historically accurate that someone would be sort of promised to this male suitor who they have no desire to be with. But then Donya, we find out later in the book, was trans and then becomes the narrator. So speaking of like adding the diversity to the book, I really liked that that was part of the plot because it was a way to introduce trans people at the time of the story, um, in a way that makes you think. Didn't know from the beginning. I think there was maybe like halfway through or at one point I started to understand, and because she was peppering in clues, but the reader goes on this journey of seeing Dunya in one way and then kind of understanding why Jamal then was like, I can't live this life. My only option is to go off with this crazy guy and get away from this because feeling so trapped in that world and that life that just doesn't feel like yours. I thought it was a really creative way to do that and felt very human. And also, I don't want to say beautiful because it's obviously very heartbreaking and a lot of bad things happen in the book. But I thought it was I haven't seen someone present a trans character, especially in fantasy, in quite this way, which I liked.
Yeah, I thought Jamal was a tragic but also triumphant character
Hmm.
because he gets his happy ending. He gets to be a part of the misfit crew. He gets to be a
Yeah.
scribe. He gets to live his best life. And I'm just like, oh, I'm so happy for him. But also tragic for me because just coming back to the fact that I have the cultural context of modern day Swana, that, we America has its problems when it comes to the LGBTQ community, but they're just nothing compared to what LGBTQ people have to go through in the Swana region. So it just
Hmm.
kind of made me sad, thinking, about. I always wondered how trans people lived in the ancient world. So that was also interesting too. I always wondered, what did they do? I know that in some cultures there were outlets, so there was ways for you to honor that part of yourself, but that is not the case necessarily for the Swana region. Something I did think was interesting though is maybe, and it kind of made me think, knowing that Shannon based a lot of the history as accurate as possible, is when Amina goes into Jamal's room, she finds this old text about these caliphs and his men who love to dress as the opposite sex.
Yeah.
And so it kind of made me think. I was like, maybe there was ways for people to express themselves. It just, maybe it's not necessarily as, in our definition of the word, as liberating as we want it to be, but they did have the outlet. They just had to find it. They had to be, first of all, privileged enough to find it. So being a caliph would be, obviously you're in a much more privileged state, since that's basically the leader of the region or the king. So obviously you're not going to kill yourself. You're not going to imprison yourself.
I mean, maybe she'll go into this more in future books for this particular time period and what that looks like. Because I think that, like, for me as a reader, I loved how she brought all of these different types of people together, which you have to do when you have this misfit crew. But it was in a way that also felt almost educational for how people were living. Like you said, how many trans people in Oman in the 12th century ended up just running away, or who were in
Yeah.
a privileged position because they felt they couldn't do anything. And then if you kind of extend that, that's probably happening to across the world in a lot of different cultures.
I mean, honestly, even here in America, if your family is super conservative, you're kind of dealing with the same questions.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're presented with the choice of, do I stay and be someone else or do I run away? Which is a very human decision that I think even if you're not trans, you can understand that. And I think that that's where the book does a good job of really humanizing Danya's experience, or I guess Jamal's experience, and showing, yeah, this is hard. And like, what would you do if you were in this position and you had to go be married to this like creepy old guy and like sleep with him and like, oh, even being a straight cis white woman, I'm like, I don't want to have to do that. So
Yeah, that's a no for me. Uh, that's actually my one critique of the book. There was this scene that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, where uh, so Amina is talking about how Jamal, or Donya at the time, using his dead name, was had it worst of all. So Amina kind of said something along the line. I think I clipped it, but she said something kind of along the lines of like, women have to do this and they find their way to accept it, but this is like, worse. And in my
Mm.
head, I'm like, I disagree, ma'am. Okay, this is really bad to me. Okay, I don't care if I don't care. This is worst case scenario of my life here. Okay, is being
Yeah.
forced to marry an old man. Okay, so call me unreasonable, but if I was in my 20s, I do not want to marry an old man.
Well, Amina didn't even do it. So that it's very hypocritical of her to say that. I mean, I guess she married different people, but she would have ran away from a life where she had to be married to this like rich guy.
Who's old. I just want to make it clear. He's old. I want to make it clear. I don't have a problem that he's rich. I'm okay. I'm okay with that part. It's the age thing for me. It's like the wrinkly smelliness, plus the fact he has other wives.
Oh, yeah. No. No, I agree. Yeah. It's a nice perspective because I feel like there's so many books out there where it's from the perspective of the person who, like the Bridgertons, like the people who are marrying into that and they're kind of playing by the rules of the society, whether they want to or not, or they kind of they want to because that's what they how they were raised and they want to fit in with society. And I like that in this book, it's the counterculture and it's the people who are making their own path and making the decision to go out and be on a ship and like deal with like sea creatures, like sea monsters instead
Like,
of
if
like
I had
living.
to choose, I'm a very cowardly person. Like, I loved Courage the Cowardly Dog because I was like, same, bro. But if I had to choose between being married to that man or fighting a ancient sea beast creature from old folk tales, I would choose the latter. That's just to make it clear to Amina how undesirable that. So yeah, you could tell. I mean, I had a real problem that she said this is worse. I don't know. I can't say, but for me, it can't get worse for me.
Yeah. I think that was definitely Amina's like her bias showing and her because she's doing this because she doesn't have money. And in the beginning, she's like, well, if I have the money, like if we get what was it, 1,000,000 dinar, I think, then she can fix the house and she can take care of her family and her crew and stuff. So I could see that there's a little bit of like, resentment on her part of, well, you're getting kind of like the world handed
Oh
to
yeah,
you
that
and
makes
you're not
sense.
taking it. Yeah. But then would she, if she was given the
She
option?
totally wouldn't. She totally
No.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So that's like the grass is always greener. I
Yeah.
feel um you want whatever everyone else has that you don't. Yeah. So Dunya is the character, as I said, the sort of the impetus of the story, going to find Dunya, and then we learn that Dunya is Jamal, who is actually the narrator of the book. And it took me a little bit to get into the narrative style of this one because I got confused for a little because it was literally just written down of what Amina was saying. So there were moments in the book where they were kind of arguing, but then we only had Amina's responses. And the first time I happened, I had to read it like 4 times because I was like, What is going on?" And then I understood, I got it for the future ones. But I thought that was an interesting style to do as well.
That could actually be a +1 for the audiobook category.
Mm,
Because of the fact that it's audio, it made it really obvious. And in fact, the way they made it sound was almost like Jamal was coming in from the other room. Like you could hear the footsteps. There was almost like what's the word? Cinematic quality to
y
the sound.
yeah.
So you could actually hear them going back and forth, and you could hear his voice sounds a little bit further away than she is. So I thought that was really interesting, and I didn't actually have that confusion at all.
Oh, that's really interesting. Because yeah, in the written book part, it was literally like a dash and then what she said, and then the next line. So it looked like there were lines missing. Did they do different voices for, like, all the characters?
Yeah, in general, usually voice actors show up. They are so good. They take their craft very seriously. And the voice actor, she did a very good job. So every character had their own accent, their own voice quality, their own way of speaking. The way she portrayed Dalila might be why Dalila is one of my favorites. She made
Mm,
Dalila like very not sultry, very low and quick. like very witty, like basically almost like the way she made her voice sound was ready to poison at a moment's notice. Just give me the word. That was the kind of the voice quality that she gave, and it made Dalila's character. I think I really like Dalila's character. I think because of the actor.
Oh, yeah, that's good to know. Maybe I'll listen to the audiobook because I want to revisit this, especially knowing that there's another coming out hopefully this year. I mean, I just read it, but we'll see. Maybe I just listen to the audiobook before I get the book.
Demi, do you want to talk about the magical island that Amina finds herself in?
Yes, I'm very curious your thoughts on that.
Okay. I thought that her on that island was actually my favorite part of the book, which I think means that I just like fantasy worlds. Like I liked Amina, but and at the end of the day, it's based in the real world. But then once she wound up in this magical island, my ears were perked up. I was soaking in everything, and I almost want a whole book just on that island. I just found it so fascinating. So I was very much like I liked the idea of there being a world under this world that is more magical that you could just wind your way in on accident if you follow these funny looking birds. Thought that was really cool. How about you?
That is so funny because I feel like I had the opposite experience where I was like, I liked the story and I loved where it was going. And then I was like, why are we on this island? Everyone is gone. What is going on? And I eventually it grew on me and I liked it. But yeah, it's funny because I mean, obviously I read fantasy. I love fantasy. But we went there and then I was just like it felt so different and it was so late in the book that my mind was just like, "But she's gotta get back. She's gotta get back." Like
That's yeah.
we're like so
It was
distracted by this.
interjected during a very tense scene. That's true, like, during a
Yeah.
very tense part of the book.
Yeah, and so I think that if I understand why it happened because then she makes the deal, I forgot the terms, which kind of set it up to have future books. And it was so fantastical. And I feel like the rest of the book had been so almost grounded in reality with magical elements that it was definitely a shift for my brain. And maybe it was because I was reading. I wonder if it's a different experience listening to the audiobook. So it took me a little bit to like not want to like have it switch to a different perspective to get back to the larger story. But I like that she, ran back into rocks and then yeah, like
The
what were they
Perrys
called? Yeah, these like bird fairy creatures. Yeah, they were
were, like, very legal.
yeah, like they had all these rules and they were there were like multiple times where they're just like, okay, well, we'll just like kill her, like basically. And it was very intense. So yeah, I think that she did a good job in the story. The author, we did go to that thing, this island, which really pulled us out of the main story, but it gave Amina these special powers, and she had been so resistant to magic that I thought that was a nice way to kind of continue her arc and show her growth is that now she has the magic, so she can't hate magic. She has a little bit more of a special gift now. Since coming to this island, she'll never be normal again. And it allowed, I feel like when we were on the island, it was a little slower compared to where we just were, but it still was fast and stuff was still happening. Like this book, I like couldn't put it down because it was just constant everything. Like it just felt like there was always something happening. And so I think that any other author would have like lingered a little longer on this island and I think pulled us too far out of the story. But the way that it was done, it was fast. So it felt like we were able to get more magic and then be like a little, like you said, like a little curious about like, what is this world? Who lives here? How many other people have just stumbled upon this island, And I wanted to know the lore, which we haven't really talked about, is how much of this magic is grounded in actual folk tales or like just tales from our world, like tales that people would tell versus how much was made up for this book specifically. And I don't know for the island where that fits.
I looked it up because I was so curious. That being said, I didn't look into it that deeply. I only had, like,
Mhm.
a minute or 2, but I actually think that the Perrys are totally made up. That
Oh, really?
island is totally from the mind of Shannon.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I thought, because I was like, I feel like it could be real. I feel like there are other tales of magical islands just existing, which
Yeah.
totally could happen because the oceans on this planet are
The
huge. So
the ocean's crazy. So I know the theme, that's a motif is whenever there's an ocean involved, you're gonna wind up on some crazy island. And honestly, like we're so privileged as 21st century people. The island that Charles Darwin discovered,
oh,
or
the
he didn't discover, but
Galapagos.
he
The
thank you.
Galapagos.
Yes. I was like, it's got something. So that island, imagine how insane it was and magical it must have been for the first people who saw it, who weren't, who put their feet on, put their feet on there. It's crazy animals. So crazy
Yeah.
that it totally reshaped the way we think about biology. So like it's real. So I don't think it's out of the realm of. And then even like for think about islands that are full of volcanoes and
Mhm.
islands that are just full of weird animals. So I think there is in real life. I wouldn't say it's not realistic to say that there are crazy islands because there totally are. So I
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and they also, I mean, thinking about volcanoes, it's like you might, if you're an explorer sailing the ocean, you might go over this one point and it's just water. And then several years later, you cross the same point and there's an island there because it just,
Yeah, you
grew.
you're like the gods decided to make land here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow, hallelujah.
Yeah, which is interesting. I was so curious to hear your thoughts on the island because it makes sense that you were like, "Ooh, I love this." Just knowing how you read, thinking about like Sanderson, which is such in our world magic, and you're like, "Okay, this is more my speed. I'm gonna." I love this.
Yes. Actually, it's so funny that we're trying to come up with examples of magical islands in real life when Shannon actually literally had a real life magical island in her book, which is the island of Socotra.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, because it's a
And
real island.
it's a real island, and I swear that I'm willing to put money on this, that she got the inspiration from the place where I first learned about Socotra Island, which is from a feature on National Geographic about the place.
Hmm.
I swear that's where she must have gotten it from. Like a couple of years ago, what took over, it was just huge because of their dragon trees that are really unique. And she actually talks about them. They're really
Oh,
unique and they have a really unique properties. They are literally
mhm.
magical trees. Like if you were an explorer who was never there, who has never been to this area, and you set foot here, you'd be like, "What kind of hallowed place is this? What are those? Those are not trees." So, yeah, everyone should check out Socotra Island and just look up the island and the unique plants that they have there.
Hmm. So this is the island that had the cave where they got the basin. I forgot what it was
The
called.
wash basin,
Yeah.
the moon of
Yes.
Saba, the moon of Saba.
Yeah. But so that's where this real island that feels magical is where this cave was, which is where kind of the book culminates. Where yeah, Amina goes and they have to it feels like Indiana Jones in my mind. Like at one point she's crossing a bridge and I just kept thinking of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, I think, where he throws pebbles and crosses this invisible bridge. That's what it looked like in my mind.
It was very Indiana Jones, including the MacGuffin, like the thing that everyone is after, including the bad
Oh,
guy.
yes.
So,
Yeah.
and I do want to talk about Falco. I thought it was really interesting plot foreshadowing. And I thought it was just an interesting plot and theme as well, which is don't mess with the magical world. And
Yes. Yeah.
they foreshadowed it many times when they would say things like Falco's such an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's so stupid. It's mentioned many times. Like, and they say he's an idiot because he's messing with something he doesn't really understand. And I thought it was really, some people might have seen it as a cop out that there was no big fight between her and him, but
Mhm.
that culminated in this battle scene and she killed him, but really more so that Dunya got rid of him by just manipulating the spell so that instead of Falco owning the demon in the wash basin, the demon owned Falco. I thought that was I thought that was actually really fitting for his character.
I thought so too, and I liked it because again, like the Amina's kind of arc was that she hated magic, she didn't want anything to do it, and then she gets pulled into adventure where she ends up having to like pursue and hunt for like, the biggest magic, and then she goes to the magical island. So it's almost I'm curious how it goes in future books, because yeah, like as you said, it kept saying like kind of don't mess with magic, you don't understand it. And Amina in a way has done that. She married Rock, even if she was drunk, like that's like not an excuse to marry a demon. I don't know. But then so she has this daughter who is half supernatural, and then she herself she's kind of has this little extra ability now that she's gone to the island and isn't just, a normal human like us in the same way. So since that was such a theme of this first book, I'm wondering if that's going to be kind of the ultimate part of the entire trilogy of, well, Amina has also been kind of dabbling with things that she didn't understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. I think the difference, now that you're saying it, I think Falco was a good foil to Amina because
Hmm.
Amina wanted, and the irony too is apparent. Amina wanted nothing to do with magic and she was afraid of it. So there's a level of humility there. So she ends up getting what Falco wanted, which is
Mm,
magical abilities. Whereas Falco, he had hubris. He thought he could control magic. And so there's no humility, there's complete arrogance, and so he ends up getting dominated by magic. So
mhm.
I think Shannon did such a good job on there's just on the thematic properties of this book and the motifs of this book. I think she laid out the crumbs really well so that the ending was really satisfying.
I think so too. Yeah, I really liked the ending. I think that it was such a fast book. I feel like it had the potential to have a disappointing ending because there was so much tension throughout, and it was doing a lot. Like as we said, it had like people of different religions on there. We had a trans character, we had the magic, we had an Arabic setting, and just a lot of things that if it wasn't very carefully done, it could have had an ending that was not just disappointing, but almost like offensive to the reader and to the characters within the book. And I think that she really pulled it off. I was really happy with the
Sh
ending.
She did, and I can say that as someone who, like I said, is familiar with the cultural context and could have easily been offended. Demi, you know that I was like, like I was like, "She better do this right," and I think she did it really right, but she also didn't make it the point of the book, which I also
Yes.
appreciate.
Yeah.
It was just part of, like, the fabric of the book, the fabric of the culture, the realities of the culture. So I thought she pulled that thread perfectly.
Yeah, I agree. It probably took so much time to weave all of this together and to make sure that it was done in a way that felt like it added to the story instead of feeling like stuff was added just to kind of check off, a diversity box or something. It was so inherent
Because
to the
readers can
story.
tell. Readers
Yeah.
can tell when you try to stuff things in for the
Yeah.
diversity check. Readers can tell, and I didn't get that vibe.
Yeah. It was really refreshing the way that it was done. And yeah, and the magic was good. Yeah, I really like this book. It's probably one of my favorite books now. So I had a note of, because this is not a debut novel. So I wanted to just mention she does have another popular trilogy where I forgot the name of the overall trilogy, but City of Brass is the first book. And it's set in Cairo, and it seems to have kind of a similar vibe when I was reading the description. Like the main character summons a djinn. I think the main character is a woman and also does like palm reading and kind of magic like that, but knows that it's not real magic, and then essentially summons a djinn and gets pulled into kind of this similar fantasy world.
Cool.
So it sounds a lot of fun, like a lot of fun. And I think it is set in Egypt. So I would be so curious to hear your thoughts on that one. So maybe we do that in the future. But yeah, so I just wanted to mention that for anyone who liked this book. And I've heard from several people who had read that series and said that it's just phenomenal and it's really well rated on Goodreads and every platform.
Didn't realize it was set in Cairo, but yes, on the internet, it seems like there are fandoms, like the City of Brass trilogy, it's a set of books. I think is
Mhm.
a fandom. Like there are stans who will die for that book. So which always is a good sign because I am a sucker for a good fandom.
Yeah, that's what I was like, I think this sounds right up your alley if you like this one. I mean, I want to read that because I really like this one. And the writing was good. We didn't even talk about that, but the descriptions were really well done and the writing was very tight and clean. The voice was strong. Overall, I mean, 5 stars in like every category for this book. It was so good.
That's how you know the writing is good when you don't even notice it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was so good. Okay, so predictions. What do you think is going to happen in the rest of the
Okay.
series?
I think Marjana and Jamal are going to become an item once Marjana's a bit older, since they're close in age. That is my hill, and
Oh,
I'm ready to die on it.
I didn't even think about that. That's so funny. Interesting. Yeah. I think that my prediction so I feel like I could go one of two ways. Either Amina tells Marjana about her father, which would be the best case scenario, or she doesn't. And then one of the books is basically about their relationship. And yeah, does Marjana, I don't want to say go to the dark side, but embrace the chaos of her father more to where Amina's having to grapple with that. I think there's going to be at least one book where that's kind of probably the last book where that's the main plot or the big theme is her probably coping with her daughter growing up and having her own identity and perspective and that sort of loss of, I don't want to say control, but authority on her life and what that looks like. So I'm going to trust Shannon, the author, that it's not going to break my heart.
Amen.
Because, yeah, because I think that, I mean, reading this book, I don't think she's going to be one of those authors who just kills a character that we love just to
I'll
do
be
it.
so upset. We'll riot. Don't worry. We'll use our power as podcasters to change.
Yeah, but I think I would be really interested to see that arc. Uh,
Love to see the Chinese folklore and Sinitic folklore meets Swana folklore. That would be
yeah.
really cool, like a dragon, like if a dragon gets involved. That would be very nice. I'd love to see that. I hope so. Speaking of quick turnaround, we could actually end this, Demi, on something totally unrelated that I thought was really funny. Remember last time I told you about Patrick Rothfuss and how he's a retired author and we were never going to get the third book? News was just released that the third book might actually be released very soon. So speaking of waiting, I don't know. Based off of his timeline, soon could be a decade. So I am cautiously optimistic. I would say 80% cautious, 20% optimistic, which is more than my 20. I was 100% cautious, lost all hope last time we spoke. So this is a market improvement for me. Yeah, I just really liked a lot of the lessons that Amina had to offer and proffer because of the fact that she is a older woman. It's a little bit personal, but a lot of the lessons that she already knows are lessons I'm kind of learning now in my 30s and just kind of working your way as best you can around it is just as an interest. I just thought was an
Mhm.
interesting points that the author was making.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we're actively working to record the next one. If you'd like more inspiration in the meantime, follow More Magic and the Little Ways on Substack, which we've linked to in the show notes below. Have a book you want us to discuss? Head over to moremagicpodcast.com and tell us what book we should read next. Until next time, happy reading, and we wish you more magic.